record. And okay, it looks like we're still recording and you are the host. So I will step back and let you guys take it, okay?
All right, thank you guys for having another scrimmage with us. We really appreciate it. I do want to preface one thing so it's not a confusion. We have somebody here who's substituting for a lawyer while someone else is dealing with other commitments. So when they get here, they're going to swap out. We're not actually using 4 lawyers. We're using 2 and 2 halves, really. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anna and we'll let you guys get started.
Thank you. So we're going to assume that all the witnesses have been pre-sworn, and we're going to go ahead and start with appearances. So plaintiff's counsel, please make your appearance.
Camera on the top. Okay. Do I start? Good afternoon, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Your Honor.
So you may introduce yourself and your other lawyers on your team, please.
Yes, Your Honor. My name is Kylie Kunkel, and I will be directing Chris Linclear, and I will be crossing Max Norshire, and this is...
Hi, Your Honor. My name is Danielle Loreto, and I will be opening. I will be crossing Will I Handle It, and I will be directing Terry Claw.
What was your name again? I'm sorry.
Daniela Loreto.
Daniela Loreto, thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Isabella Bowers, and I will be directing Jackie Lung and crossing Alex Eubanks.
And defense counsel, if you'll make your appearance.
Your Honor, my name is Nathan Spencer. I will be cross-examining Jackie Lung, directing Dr. Northshire, and giving the closing statement.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Sterling Rankin, and I will be doing the opening statement for the defense. I will be directing Alex Eubanks and crossing Chris Leclerc.
Your Honor, my name is Kayla Riccio, and I will be directing Wilton and crossing Terry Claw.
Great. Do y'all want to introduce your witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Noah Haver, and I will be playing the role of Chris Leclerc.
Your Honor, my name is Kira Garcia, and I'll be playing Terry Cloth.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Kiara Rivera, and I'll be playing Jackie Lung.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Katie Froelich, and I'll be playing the character Wilton J. Handle It.
My name is Olivia Stroud, and I'll be playing Alex Chern Eubanks. Good afternoon. My name is Silver Croston, and I'll be playing Dr. Max Northshire.
Great, thank you. And so plaintiff's counsel, do you have any housekeeping matters?
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff moves to pre-admit exhibit number 9 and exhibit number 10, please.
Any objections?
No objections, Your Honor.
Exhibits 9 and 10 are admitted. Anything else, plaintiff?
No, Your Honor.
Defense, do you have any housekeeping matters?
Yes, Your Honor. We would like to request that exhibits 1 and 12, as stipulated as authentic and pre-admitted, be pre-admitted into evidence.
Okay, so they are stipulated as pre-admitted?
Yes, Your Honor. I'd just like to clarify that we are referring to them as pre-admitted.
Okay, so exhibits 1 and 12 are admitted and will be considered as such. Anything else?
And then, Your Honor, if there is no objection from the plaintiff, we'd like to pre-admit exhibits 8, 4, and 2.
Plaintiff, any objections?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, so exhibits 8, 4, and 2 are also admitted now. So exhibits 1, 2, 4, 8, 9, and 10, and 12 are all already admitted. So, okay, well, we're good to go then. Everyone ready?
Yes, Your
Okay, let's
Yes, Your Honor.
proceed with plaintiff's opening statement.
May it please the court. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for being here today. My name is Daniela Loreto, and today my co-counsel and I will prove by a preponderance of the evidence the validity of the holographic will written by Mr. Design in the submersible known as the Tutu. Furthermore, by using just a little TLC, it will be clear that the Aquatic Center for Exploration, or ACE, is in fact the intended beneficiary of Nano's estate. TLC, terry cloth, the logo, and competence. These three simple components will lead you to undoubtedly recognize the role of the Aquatic Center for Exploration in today's case. Let's go back to September 25th of 2022. It was during this time where Nano Design first contacted Chris Leclerc to discuss his interest in the Tutu. Nano took interest in the dive in hopes of finding a sacred piece of history, the Ellie. The Ellie was a 19th century ship that was commissioned by the French Emperor Napoleon. The wreck of the Ellie remains a mystery, and that is what drew Nano in. From this time all the way until November, Nano Design would continuously put in effort, money, and personal responsibility into assuring that the dive would occur on schedule. And on November 1st of 2022, that is exactly what would happen. Nano Design, accompanied by Captain Jesse Watkins, commenced a 300-foot deep underwater dive in the Texoma Trench. They resided within the submersible, the Tutu, which was manufactured and operated by the Aquatic Center of Exploration. On November 1st, the Tutu was transported by the Bravo, and it would be 3 hours later when the Bravo would lose communication with the Tutu. On November 7th, the Tutu was located by the Navy. Within the Tutu, Jesse Watkins and Nano Design were found deceased. After further investigation, they would discover a holographic will written by Nano with the phrase, "I leave everything to Ace. I forgive you." Now, the defense will want you to believe that Nano was referring to his driver, Alex Eubanks, but we will demonstrate two simple things. One, Nano was fully competent when he wrote the will, meaning he understood the nature and extent of his property. And two, the rightful beneficiary is in fact instead the Aquatic Center for Exploration, or ACE. Today, you will hear from three of our witnesses, Chris Leclerc, Terry Cloth, and Jackie Lung. Terry Cloth, who makes the T in TLC. Terry, Nano's personal medical practitioner, someone who was trusted by Nano and was in his presence numerous times leading up to the exploration dive. Clove will affirm to you that in his meetings with Mr. Design, Nano only referred to Alex as Alex and nothing else. In fact, Clove can testify to Nano telling him that Alex would be taking him to ACE. You will also hear from Chris Leclerc, the CEO and Managing Director of the Testing Compliance for the Aquatic Center for Exploration. Chris Leclerc composes the L in TLC, the logo. With his pride for his company, Leclerc will attest how everything about the Aquatic Center points at it being ACE, as referred to by Nano in his final testament. How the customers, employees, and public recognize it just as the logo says, ACE. You will also hear from Jackie Lung, who composes the C in TLC, competent. Jackie Lung, who hosted a private one-on-one training for Nano beginning in October of 2022. Jackie Lung would put Nano through extensive training and would teach him breathing techniques that would evidently optimize competence. The plaintiff must prove by a preponderance of the evidence, meaning more likely than not, and we welcome that burden because with just a little TLC, you will see that Nano Design had full competence when he wrote his last will, and that the intended beneficiary is no one other than ACE, the Aquatic Center for Exploration. At the end of this trial today, we will ask you to validate the holographic will written by Mr. Design on the submersible, and respectfully name the Aquatic Center as the beneficiary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Defense, your opening.
May it please the court. My name is Sterling Rankin, and my co-counsel, Nathan Spencer and Kayla Riccio, and I will be representing the defense today. We are asking that you consider the preponderance of the evidence and conclude that Nano Design was not competent at the time of the publishing of his new will. This proves, we will prove that by the writing of Nano's will, he continuously changed his mind. This will show that he was not competent to be able to legally change his will. In addition, we will clearly demonstrate that the nickname ACE or ACE does in fact mean Alex Churn Eubanks. Nano and Alex were not always exposed to an outside witness. Therefore, they could have said something to each other that no one else had witnessed, so that person wouldn't have knowledge of their statement. Alex, as he stated in his fact statement, was called Ace by Nano pretty often, as they were great friends. Nano was the first one to call Alex Ace in a joke, and only a true friend would call him Ace. He made that joke and wanted to be lighthearted when he was speaking to someone near and dear to him, as best friends often do. Nano also assisted Alex as needed through their friendship. This proves that he is in fact Ace in Nano's will. Nano was involved in the testing of the submersible called the Tutu, and he was in the final 6,000-meter test dive. The defense will provide evidence proving that the Tutu, the underwater exploration sub, passed the exam for a safe trip for the two men. This was the final test that it needed to receive the Texoma Maritime Excursion Certificate. The dive was planned to be around 16 hours long, with the vessel going down for 6 hours, staying near the ocean floor for about 4, and then 6 hours to return. After about 3 hours into the mission, the command ship Bravo lost communication with the Tutu. During the trip, Nano went through the process of writing his will again. Now, before the dive, Nano had a meeting with his attorney, Wilton Handley. There, they created his true will and decided that they would give everything to Alex Chern Eubanks, or Ace. Nano was simply restating what his decision was in the sub. Even if Nano did in fact change his decision in the sub, he clearly wasn't thinking straight because he never even thought to clarify that Ace does mean Alex Chern Eubanks. This proves that he was not competent at the time to be able to legally change his will. The two men were also running out of oxygen. This can cause confusion and difficulty of not being able to think well. Nano had given $100 million to the Aquatic Center for Exploration. They only needed $50 million for the dive, but he decided to double what he was giving. Nano didn't even enjoy the water. Dr. Terry was surprised when he mentioned that he wanted to go on a dive and that he donated to a water exploration company. Nano had no reason to give billions of dollars to a flourishing company. When it came to Nano's will, he was very precise about who it was to. He wanted to give money to Alex Chern Eubanks, or Ace, and not the Aquatic Center for Exploration. He also desired to establish that he wanted to give to charities that he supported, which were near and dear to his heart, similarly with Alex. Wouldn't that make sense? The charities he wanted to donate to were already in great shape and didn't need any donations, so he could have found other ones he truly needed, if he were thinking correctly. Nano would have donated to a charity that really needed the money. Differently from the charities, Alex still needed help financially. Therefore, Nano would continue to help Alex financially by putting him in his will. Now, let's review what we've been through. Firstly, Nano wrote Ace, and he meant Alex Chern Eubanks. Nano was always best friends with Alex, and Nano came up with his nickname. Alex was also the one Nano assisted with bills, housing, and many more things. Lastly, Nano was not competent at the time of the publishing of his new will in the submersible. He didn't clarify which Ace he was referring to and was giving to flourishing charities, so he had no reason to be competent during that time. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Plaintiff, are you ready to present your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may call your first witness.
Your Honor, the plaintiff calls Chris Linclair to the stand.
Thank you. Mr. Leclerc, you've already been sworn. Remember that you're under oath. Plaintiff, you may begin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Could you please introduce yourself for the jury?
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Leclerc.
Could you please tell us a little bit about yourself, Mr. Linclair?
Sure. I'm 47 years old, and I'm the CEO and Managing Director of Testing Compliance at the Aquatic Center for Exploration, or ACE. I graduated from the University of Sydney with a degree in aquatic engineering, and I got my master's in business administration.
You said CEO. Does that mean that you're the owner of ACE?
Well, technically I am the majority owner, but in reality I only own 10% of the company. The other 90% is owned by our approximately 9,000 team members.
Thank you. And how long have you worked with ACE?
Well, I've been CEO for about 7 years, ever since 2016. Before that, I worked with another ocean exploration company called Mills Maritime Machines, and I worked with them for 14 years.
And what does ACE do exactly?
Well, ACE is a pioneer in the deep sea exploration industry. We are dedicated to exploring the far-reaching areas of our ocean that have not been mapped and explored. We also do a lot of work for recording the ocean for everyone to see.
Thank you. And what kind of work do you do with ACE?
Well, because of my passion for ocean exploration, I am personally involved in many of the projects that ACE undertakes, including designing underwater submersibles.
And could you recognize these submersibles if you're presented with evidence of them?
Yes, I could.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness who has been marked for identification purposes as exhibit number 2, please?
Yes, you may.
Let the record state that I'm showing a copy to the opposing counsel. I now hand you what has been marked for identification purposes as exhibit number 2. Would you identify it, please, for me?
Yes, this is a simplified diagram of the Tutu submersible. There are various specifications about it also at the bottom.
And has anything been changed or altered in your copy?
No.
Thank you. And is it a fair and accurate representation of the Tutu submersible?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. So tell me, Mr. Linclear, what was the primary purpose of the Tutu submersible?
Well, its primary purpose was to carry a crew of 3 to 4 people right down to the ocean floor.
And could you tell us a little bit about the specifications of the Tutu, please?
Sure. The submersible was 7 by 2.6 by 3.7 meters, so it could dive down to 6,000 feet. On board, there was enough oxygen to supply 3 occupants for a total of 48 hours. And in addition, there was a safety system called ballasts, which could be engaged in case of an emergency via the cockpit, so the submersible could rise to the surface.
And how would one engage these ballasts from the cockpit in case of an emergency?
Well, there is a lever on the floor of the sub in the cockpit that the pilot could press down to engage them.
And Your Honor, may I publish exhibit number 2 to the jury?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Let's move on to the events surrounding Nanodesign. When did Nanodesign first contact you?
Well, I first got a call from him at 9:25 p.m. on September 25th, 2022.
And what did Nano say during this phone call that you remember?
Well, he started talking about the specifications of the Tutu, which was not public information. I mean, we're talking like stuff in the blueprints. And then he asked if the sub was ready.
And was the sub ready?
Not quite. You see, the Tutu had to pass 6 underwater pressure tests before it could be TMEC certified for civilian passengers. I told Nano that, but it did not stop him. He just kept on calling and calling for almost a full week.
And do you have any idea how Mr. Design would have known the specifics about the Tutu?
No, I have absolutely zero idea. Our blueprints are locked behind an encrypted server. Nobody but the highest level employees are supposed to have access to them.
And did he say anything else?
Well, he said that he wanted to use the Tutu to dive into the Texoma Trench to complete our final tests.
Did you agree to allow Nano to dive in the submersible?
After a lot of convincing on his part, yes. After a week of constant calls, I opened my laptop to just see Nano's face. I didn't accept any video call or anything. He was just there.
And what did he tell you on this video call?
Well, he said that he wanted to go find the Ellie, a French ship rumored to be at the bottom of the Texoma Trench. And I was honestly scared.
And why were you scared?
Well, I thought Nano would just end up standing right behind me, breathing down my neck if I didn't give in. I tried to put up as many roadblocks as I could, but he found his way around all of them.
And what were these roadblocks?
Well, I told him that we would have to lie to the Texoma guard, and then he said, "You will." We said that we would need him to sign the biggest waiver and release in human history. Draft it up, he said. We would need $50 million in 4 weeks to get it prepared, and then he said he'd give us 100.
And did Nano pay $100 million?
Yes, he did.
Thank you. Let's move on to the dive itself. What day did the dive take place on?
It took place on November 1st, 2022. That's when the dive began.
And what happened during the lead up to this dive?
Well, on October 23rd, Nano came by our facility to the Texoma Harbor where the Tutu was dry docked. It was there that he met Jesse Watkins, the captain.
And did anything else happen?
Yes, on October 30th, just 2 days before the dive, I drove 2 hours to see the command ship Bravo off on its 24-hour journey to the drop-off point. The next morning, I went back to headquarters where I coordinated with the rest of our team as they prepared for the dive.
And what happened during the dive?
Well, just a few hours in, we suddenly lost all communications with the Tutu. At first, I thought it was just a glitch, a computer glitch, but it quickly devolved into a terrible, terrible situation.
Thank you. And how did you respond to the loss in communication?
Well, we contacted the Texoma Navy as we kept trying to contact the ship to no avail.
Was ACE or the Texoma Navy able to make contact at any point after the initial loss of communications?
Not officially, no. The Navy did pick up some sonar pings from around the area, which I'm certain was someone banging on the side of the Tutu, since that's a basic practice in
Objection narrative.
Response?
Your Honor, my witness was just trying to explain himself and what he was, and what had happened during the situation.
Okay, the objection is sustained. Go ahead and break up this testimony, counsel.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Linclair, was the Texoma able to make any contact? Was the Texoma Navy able to make contact with the Tutu at all?
No, not officially. There were some bangs on the side of. They heard sonar pings from the area, which I'm certain were people banging on the side of the submersible, but not officially.
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation. The witness does not know what the bang was from.
Response?
Your Honor, the witness was there during the situation, and it's pretty clear knowledge that the bangings, that's where they came from. He knows it from being in the situation.
Okay, I believe that you've laid enough foundation that the witness knows about this type of equipment for him to be able to testify for this, so the objection's overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. One last question, Mr. Linclair. How did you feel when it was discovered that Nano Design and Jesse Watkins had died?
Well, I felt absolutely horrible and guilty. I felt like, and I feel like it was all my fault, and I will never forget what I saw.
Thank you. We pass the witness, Your Honor.
Thank you, applicants. Go ahead with your cross.
Thank you. You're the managing director of the testing compliance at the Aquatic Center for Exploration, right?
Yes, that's correct.
You needed $50 million for Nano to go on this dive, right?
That's what I told him, yes.
And Nano gave you $100 million?
He did.
So he doubled the amount you initially wanted, yes?
Yes, and I was very surprised by that.
And you're very educated in the sea exploration department, true?
I would say I'm fairly educated in that department, yes.
So you would know what you're talking about when you allow someone to go on a test drive or a test dive. Isn't that right?
Yes, I would say so.
So you knew that the two members of the tutu would be able to make it back when they lost communication, correct?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Okay, I'll rephrase. So you would have knowledge that the two members on the tutu would have a way out of a dangerous situation, yes?
Well, it depends on the dangerous situation.
In this case, they had a way out, yes?
I still don't understand what exact situation you are talking about, so I can't answer that question.
We'll move on. The ACE logo on Exhibit 2 is the same one as in the tutu, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So with the two members in the tutu, with this case of losing communication, they had a way out of it, yes?
Well, I can't say anything for certain. I mean, there were ballasts on the floor, but they weren't engaged.
So yes.
I mean, I don't know what happened exactly in the submersible, so I can't say for
Objection,
certain.
Your Honor, non-responsive.
Okay, so say the question one more time.
So the two men in the tutu were able to get out of the situation that they were in.
So I'm gonna go ahead and sustain the objection as non-responsive, and I'm gonna instruct the witness to do the best that you can to respond to that question with the information you have.
So they did have a way out of the situation, yes?
If you're talking about the ballasts, I guess they could have engaged them, yes.
Okay, so yes. And the tutu left at about 8:04 a.m., right?
That's correct.
And you lost communication around 11:14 a.m.?
Yes, I would say so, yes.
Okay. You educated Nano and Jesse on how to release the ballasts, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So 8:04 to 9:04 is 1 hour. 9:04 to 10:04 is 2 hours. 10:04 to 11:04. So 11:14 is when you lost contact. So about 3 hours. It was about 3 hours and 10 minutes into the test dive when you lost communication with them, right?
Yes, that's correct.
These two men were trained to know the vessel inside and out, yes?
Jesse Watkins was, yes.
And so they knew where the ballast releases were, right?
I did tell them where they were, and Jesse Watkins was provided with the training
Okay.
to know where the ballasts were, but
Yes.
not Nano Design.
Okay. You said that they could always release the ballasts in your statement. That's true, right?
Yes, that's correct. They could have.
Okay. And they lost communication about 3 hours after they started off. So the removal of the ballasts, as you said in your statement, helps the submersible rise 50 meters per hour. Isn't that correct?
Yes, they're designed to allow the submersible to rise in case
Okay.
of an emergency situation. Yes.
It was 9:02 when they reached 500 meters, yes?
Yes, that's correct.
And then it was at 1,000 meters, it was 9:56, right?
Yes, that sounds right.
And then 1,500 meters, 1,500 meters at 10:27, yes?
Yes, that's correct.
So it was taking at least 40 minutes to go 500 meters. Isn't that true?
Yes, that's correct.
So the submersible was probably around 2,000 meters at 11:14 because it was about 40 minutes later.
That sounds about right. Yes.
So the answer to this, I'm sorry. The release of the ballast raises the submersible 50 meters per hour. Isn't that correct?
They are supposed to, yes, if they function properly.
But the ballasts weren't released when you saw the submersible.
They were not released. That's correct.
So at 50 meters per hour, it would be 2,000 meters divided by the 50 meters per hour. Yes?
Yes, that's correct.
The answer to this problem is 40 hours, right?
Yes.
Okay. And if we multiply 50 back into 40, we get our 2,000 meters to affirm our problem. Yes?
Yes, that sounds right.
Okay. So it would take you about 40 hours to rise back up to the surface in the tutu. Yes?
Yes, that would be correct. If the ballasts were properly engaged and were in fact traveling at 50 meters per second.
But they weren't engaged.
Per hour, yes.
Yes. If Jesse and Nano were thinking well enough, they could have thought to release the ballasts, right?
I believe that Jesse Watkins had the necessary training.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Respond, yes.
Your Honor, my witness was still trying to even answer the question, and the defense didn't even let him finish. Just because he didn't give him the answer he wanted does not mean he's non-responsive.
Your Honor, we would just like a yes or no.
Okay, but you understand you asked him a compound question with two different people. So he was trying to answer with regard to each. So I'm going to direct you to rephrase your question and let's see how that goes.
Okay, thank you. So if the two men were thinking well enough, they might have thought to release the ballasts. Yes?
I believe Jesse Watkins could have, but I do not know about nano design. No.
Okay. So the two men had 48 hours of oxygen for 3 people in the submersible. Yes?
Yes, that's correct.
But it was only 2 people, not 3. So they would have had 24 extra hours each. Yes?
Give or take, depending on the amount of oxygen used, but that sounds about right. It'd be around that area.
So they would each have 24 plus 48 hours, which is equal to 72 hours per oxygen per person in the sub at that time. Is that right?
Yes, give or take.
So with 40 hours to rise back up to the surface after releasing the ballasts, they would each have 32 extra hours of oxygen per person. Doesn't that make sense?
Yes, but the ballasts were never released.
Exactly. You saw Nano with a red notebook sometime before he boarded the tutu, isn't that right?
That's correct.
And he wrote a will, but changed it multiple times. Yes?
Could you rephrase that question?
Nano had established his will before his dive, but he changed it during the dive, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And it showed that when the bodies were examined after they'd passed, unfortunately, it showed that they had ran out of oxygen, right?
Yes, that's correct. It showed that they had suffered from hypoxia.
And the lack of oxygen shows that it's harder for people to think correctly, yes?
I believe that's one of the main symptoms of hypoxia, yes.
Yes. So Nano wasn't in the right position to have redone his will if he was running out of oxygen, right?
I don't know anything about that, so I can't answer that question.
Your Honor,
But
objection, Your Honor. My witness is not an expert witness in this field.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes, you may.
It is known to every person, hopefully, that the human body needs oxygen to operate correctly.
Yes, but this witness isn't an expert with regard to the impact of lack of oxygen and how quickly and all of that. So I think that type of testimony needs to be asked of a different type of witness. So I'm going to sustain the objection.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So Nano was running out of oxygen at some point in the submersible, yes?
Well, the autopsy did say that he died of hypoxia.
And he ran out of, he wrote his will in the sub, right?
Yes, it was in his notebook, yes.
Okay. I pass the witness, Your Honor.
Thank you. Do any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Okay, you may step down.
Thank you.
Plaintiff, call your next witness.
Your Honor, plaintiff would like to call Terry Cloth to the stand.
Thank you, Ms. Cloth. You're reminded that you're under oath. You may proceed, plaintiff.
Good morning. Please state your name for the court.
Hello, my name is Terry Cloth.
Could you please tell me a little bit about yourself, Ms. Cloth?
Sure. I'm 39 years old. I live right here in Texoma City, and I was the personal physician of Nanodesign.
Ms. Cloth, what exactly do you mean when you say personal physician?
Well, it meant that I was his physician. I didn't have any other patients or work for anyone else. Design was the only person who I performed examinations on, which usually manifested itself in weekly checkups and physicals.
How did you come to know Mr. Design?
Well, I first met Nano back in high school. We were both part of the social rejects group, so we actually became pretty close, despite the fact that he was 5 years younger than me.
How long have you been Mr. Design's physician?
I was his physician for 5-ish years, from 2017 up until his untimely death in November.
And what was your salary like working for Mr. Design?
Well, I had a yearly salary of $250,000 and was reimbursed for any and all expenses related to the job. It was a pretty sweet deal, all things considered.
Could you tell me where exactly did you get your education to be a medical doctor, Ms. Cloth?
Well, I got my bachelor's degree in biology from Texoma University, and since I always wanted to be a doctor, I went to medical school at Granada Medical School after being offered a 50% scholarship.
And how was your performance in medical school, Ms. Cloth?
By the time I graduated, I was in the top 25% of my class.
Okay, let's move on to after you graduated. Did you work in any medical capacity before working for Mr. Design?
Yes, I was an intern at Muscle Shoals Municipal Hospital in Alabama. Then I completed my residency at Dead Man Medical Center in Dallas.
Is there anything else?
Yes, after my time at Dead Man, I became an associate physician at a small practice called Walk-In Clinics.
Did anything happen during your time at Walk-In Clinics?
Well, one of the doctors was convicted of Medicare fraud, which led to other people at the clinic being investigated.
Did this include you?
Yes, and if you bill Medicare for any part of your practice, you're inevitably going to get investigated for fraud at some point. Every doctor knows this, and it's just part of the job.
Going back to your relationship with Mr. Design, how did you come to be Mr. Design's physician?
Well, we rekindled our friendship at our 15-year high school reunion. There, he discovered I was pretty unhappy with my job, and he offered me a position.
And how often would you meet with Nano as his physician?
We met every week for a checkup and a physical.
And during these physicals, did you ever notice Nano being accompanied by anyone?
Yes, Nano was often accompanied by Alex, his driver and assistant.
Let's move on to the events surrounding November 1st. When did Nano first contact you about his activities surrounding the aquatic center?
Well, Nano first contacted me on September 30th. He told me he needed a physical for a deep sea scuba dive. Nano never once had me do an examination for something like this before.
Objection, Your Honor, it was on September 31st of 2022, not September 30th.
Okay, what is your objection though? You're quibbling with what the witness's testimony?
Yes, in her testimony, it says that it was September 31st, not September 30th, so that is incorrect information.
Okay, but that's not an objection for a law. You could object that she's outside of this is something that you need to bring up with her on cross-examination. So the objection's overruled.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you perform the physical as Nano requested?
Yes, I recall performing it on October 2nd.
And did you take notes during this examination?
Yes.
Would you be able to identify them if you were handed a copy?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness with what has been marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 6?
Yes, you may.
3 pages. Let the record reflect, I'm handing a copy to opposing counsel. Ms. Cloth, do you have a copy with you?
Yes.
Ms. Cloth, could you identify this for the jury?
Yes. These are my identification notes from the physical of Nano on October 2nd.
Have these notes been changed or
Thank you.
altered in any way?
No.
Your Honor, we offer Exhibit 6 into evidence.
Any objections? Defense counsel?
Can you say that again?
Do you have any objections to the Exhibit 6 being admitted into evidence?
No, ma'am.
Okay, then Exhibit 6 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. About the physical, was there anything abnormal about it?
Overall, the examination was pretty routine. The only abnormal thing that happened was during the stress ECG test.
Could you explain to the jury what a stress ECG test is?
Sure. A stress ECG test involves a patient running on a treadmill at different inclines and speeds. They're hooked up to a machine and that monitors their heart rate and blood pressure. It's meant to make sure their vitals are okay at different levels of energy exertion.
And how is it abnormal?
Well, during the test, Nano took a pretty bad fall.
What does this mean in terms of the physical?
Well, technically it would have landed Nano in the poor category, but I took into consideration that the test was stopped due to the fall, not due to fatigue or exhaustion, which is what we were testing.
Did anything else happen while you were performing the physical?
Well, I was supposed to complete a CT scan and some blood tests, but I wasn't able to make it there.
Your Honor, may we publish Exhibit 6 to the jury?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Ms. Cloth. Your Honor, we pass the witness.
Thank you. Defense, you may begin your cross.
I couldn't hear you. Could you repeat that?
You may begin your cross.
Okay. Dr. Terry Cloth, from your witness statement, it appears that you were close with Nano. Is that correct?
Yes.
You and Nano even went to the same high school, right?
Correct.
Nano was a good friend, right?
Correct.
Later in 2018, Nano hired you as his physician, correct?
Yes.
You were in charge of everything relating to Nano's health mentally and physically, correct?
Physically, yes.
You saw Nano at least once a week, correct?
Yes.
Nano treated you well as a boss, right?
Correct.
He was generous, correct?
Correct.
Nano could have chosen any other person in the world to be his personal physician, but he chose you, an old friend from high school, instead because he was loyal, correct?
Correct.
And do you think that Nano would display this loyalty to any of his other friends?
I'm sure he would.
Okay. Nano was close with Alex Chern Eubanks, right?
Correct.
From what you saw, Alex did everything for Nano aside from things pertaining to business, correct?
Correct.
Nano was grateful to have a good friend and employee such as Alex, right?
Yes.
Because Nano was loyal to you, it makes sense for him to
Objection, Your Honor. For the last question, it called for relevance.
It was not relevant?
Yes.
Okay, and
And
what's your response to that?
I believe it was a proper lay opinion because it was correct and factual opinion of what the witness experienced.
Right, but she's saying it's not relevant. What is your response to that?
I'm just trying to see what the witness's opinion was.
What was the question again?
The question was, Nana was grateful to have a good friend and employee such as Alex, right?
So tell me why it's relevant that Nana was grateful to have a good friend like Alex. Why is that important
I'll
to your
drop the
case?
question, Your Honor.
Your what?
I'll drop the question.
Okay, I mean, it probably is relevant, but you need to have a response to that. So why it helps your case, but we can move on for now. So objection, sustained, move on.
Okay. So because Nana was loyal to you, it makes sense for him to be loyal to Alex, right?
Correct.
Because Nana was, since Nana was loyal to friends like you and Alex, it would make sense for Nana to keep Alex in his will, correct?
Yes.
objection, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Speculation.
Response.
I dropped the question.
Okay, you withdraw the question, so we'll move on. Go ahead.
Okay. So in your 4 years at Walk-In Medics, you were charged 5 separate times for medical fraud, right?
Yes, but I was never convicted.
Okay. Is it true that in 2022, that Nano returned from a mountain climbing trip drastically deprived of oxygen?
Yes, but after a few days, he returned to normal.
Okay. He needed several tanks of oxygen to be restored, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So in addition, Nano also fell off his treadmill during the stress ECG on October the 2nd of 2022, correct?
Correct.
And Nano also failed to show up to his weekly physical on October the 17th of 2022, correct?
Correct.
So on October 2nd, Nano fell off his treadmill, and on October 17th, he didn't show up to his weekly physical, yet you still signed him off to go on an extensive scuba dive on November 1st of 2022, correct?
Correct, because everything besides the fall was normal.
Well, I'm just looking for a yes or no.
Yes.
Okay. So wouldn't this have been a concern to you?
Like I said, everything else was normal besides the fall. So he gave me no concern.
Okay, I passed the witness.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No, ma'am.
Plaintiff's attorney, do you have any redirect?
No redirects, Your Honor.
Okay, the witness may step down. Plaintiffs, call your next witness.
plaintiff would like to call Jackie Lung to the stand.
Okay, Ms. Lung, I'm just remind you that you've already been sworn, so plaintiff, you may begin your questioning.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, or good afternoon. Could you please introduce yourself for the jury?
Well, hello, my name is Jackie Lung.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Ms. Lung?
Well, I'm 50 years old, unmarried, and I served in the Navy. As of today, I'm just a diving specialist.
Ms. Lung, can you briefly describe your service in the Navy, including any specialized training you've received?
I served in the Navy for many years. I basically specialize in sonar technology on submarines.
Did you earn any awards during your time at the Navy?
Yes, I was awarded the Medal of Valor for doing an exemplary job during an operation.
Ms. Lung, how long have you been working as a diving instructor?
I've been working as a diving instructor for the Dive and Survive Scuba Diving Company for about 4 years.
What type of training do you provide to your clients?
Well, I offer a comprehensive range of training that includes scuba diving techniques and underwater survival skills.
Anything else that you offer?
I also give specialized low oxygen training and, of course, methods to enhance performance and safety during deep sea activities.
Ms. Lung, are you familiar with nanodesign?
I am indeed familiar with nanodesign.
How long have you been acquainted to him?
Well, I first became acquainted with Nano on October 1st, 2022, when he wanted scuba diving training from me.
How would you describe nanodesign?
He wasn't too different from most of my clients, an average rich guy with too much time on his hands. He was aloof at times, but overall, his skills in the water were very impressive to say the least.
Did you design any specific training for Mr. Design?
Yes, I specifically designed specific training based on his requests and needs.
Can you give us some examples?
Well, I put Nano under stressful underwater situations. One of these was when I took him down 120 feet, spun him around to simulate disorientation, and he managed to swim back to the surface as assigned.
What is the purpose of this task?
This is designed to shock the diver and prepare them for a situation where they might find themselves troubled.
And how did he react to that?
He never panicked. He was so calm throughout all of it.
Ms. Long, did Mr. Design show up to his training consistently?
He didn't consistently show up for the entire duration of the training. After several sessions, he just stopped attending without completing the full training program.
Can you tell us when he stopped showing up for the training?
Nano stopped showing up for his sessions after October 15th.
How long should he have been training for?
He should have been... We were supposed to train together for about 3 weeks, but I never saw him again. I called his assistant, but they never responded.
Did you have any particular observations about Mr. Design's performance that you would like to highlight?
Well, throughout these sessions, I noticed Nano's detached demeanor, limited communication, and his seemingly relentless determination in the water.
Ms. Long, were there any incidents during these training sessions that raised some concerns?
There were some instances where Nano's behavior, particularly his determination, gave rise to some concerns about him potentially pushing himself beyond safe limits. Personally, I thought it was just part of his personality.
Was there anything that affected the training sessions?
Well, his poor communication skills affected the training dynamics, making it quite hard to gauge his comfort and potential limitations. This impacted our ability to establish a balanced training regimen.
Could you describe the nature of these scuba training sessions?
He seemed to seek an adrenaline rush. He displayed minimal communication and appeared somewhat detached, but he was receptive and exhibited considerable strength and skill. He was a freaking machine.
Did any of these behaviors from the training pose any specific risks?
It did pose some challenges in enduring his safety and well-being during the training. His drive to push past the limits without regard for his safety raised some concerns about potential risk.
Based on your expertise, what are your thoughts on the oxygen depletion inside the submersible?
Based on what I read and examined, in my opinion, the 48-hour supply of oxygen lasted much longer than 48 hours.
Objection, Your Honor, improper lay opinion.
Response.
Your Honor, may I refer to my co-counsel?
Yes, you may, quickly.
Thank you. I'll move on, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, objection sustained.
Your Honor, we may pass the witness. Or, sorry. We pass the witness.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
May proceed with your cross.
Thank you. So, Ms. Lung, you graduated from the academy in the bottom 5%, right?
Yes.
Okay. And are you a medical expert?
No.
Okay, so you haven't received any training in spotting things like lapses in memory, right?
No.
Okay, you didn't train Jesse Watkins, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So Nano is going on a submersible.
Your Honor?
Go ahead.
The last question, relevancy?
Okay,
Yeah.
what is, you understand you're saying that the question was, you're asking about the relevance of the question. So defense counsel, what's your response?
My response, Your Honor, would be that the degree of the second passenger's training on the submersible, if he had been subjected to the same kind of training, such as intermittent hypoxia training, is very relevant to determining the nature of this case.
Okay, so the objection is overruled. You may proceed.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. Nano was going on a submersible expedition, right, Ms. Long?
Yes.
Okay, but he asked for scuba diver training, isn't that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, and I'd like to, Your Honor, may I approach the witness with a copy of what has been marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 8?
As exhibit which? 8?
8, Your Honor.
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Lung, can you identify this exhibit?
Yes. This is a transcript of a group chat history of me and my friend Sunil John.
Okay, and this hasn't been changed or altered in any way?
Nope.
Okay, so you noticed that Nano was behaving, quote, like a zombie, end quote, after your first meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay, and you also noticed that he had very poor communication skills?
Yes.
Okay, and is it true that you sent a message on October 4th saying you, in your opinion, thought this was more than a minor personality disorder, right?
Yes, that is correct. I did say that.
Okay, so on October 7th, you sent a message saying that Nano had forgotten your name that day, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and you believed that the oxygen in the submarine could have lasted longer than the 48 hours it was designed for, right?
Yes.
Okay, and in your opinion, that's because of the hypoxic training that Nano received, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
Objection, Your Honor? Lack of personal knowledge.
Response?
if I might respond, Your Honor, I believe the witness offered testimony in the plaintiff's direct to that effect. I'm just clarifying that that's the basis for the testimony that the witness has already offered.
The objection is overruled. Go ahead and proceed with your next question.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. So just to clarify, the reason why you believe the oxygen could have lasted longer in the submarine, that's just because of the hypoxic training that Nano received, right?
Yes.
Okay, and you have no idea if Watkins received that training, right?
I believe he received that same training by one of my colleagues.
Okay, and just curious, why do you think that? What's the basis for that?
Well, me and my colleagues were discussing about the training, and they mentioned that.
Interesting. So, but you don't actually know whether or not they offer intermittent hypoxia training, right?
Well, that is true, yes.
Okay, great. So you've never actually quantified, like statistically or scientifically, how much IHT techniques lower oxygen consumption, isn't that right?
May you repeat the question?
You've never actually scientifically quantified how much intermittent hypoxic training lowers oxygen consumption. That's correct, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is just based on your own opinion that you haven't actually quantified, just to clarify?
Yes.
Right, no further questions, Your Honor, we pass the witness.
You have any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, you may step down. The witness may step down. Does the plaintiff rest?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now we're going to move on to defense's witnesses. Defense, please call your first witness.
Your Honor, the defense would like to call Wilton to the stand. Wilton, handle it.
Okay, Miss Hanlett. Wait, are you the defense witness? Where's the defense witness? Okay, are you defense witness?
Yes, sorry, I was having issues with my camera.
Okay, so you're going to be questioning Miss Hanlett.
Yes.
So Miss Hanlett, you're reminded that you're under oath. Okay, a defense counsel, you may begin with your direct.
Okay, can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Hi, my name is Will Handlet. I'm 34 years old, and you've probably seen me all over TV as a Texoma handle.
Where did you get an education?
I got my education through Stanford Law.
Okay, what's your current occupation?
Currently, I'm an attorney and officer of the Court of Texoma.
How many years have you been an attorney?
I've been an attorney now for about 7 years.
Who were you to Nano?
I was his estate lawyer.
Were you and Nano close?
Oh yeah, I'd see that man at least once a week.
Did Nano trust you?
I would say yeah. I handled his wills for about 6 years.
What role do you play in this case?
I was his estate lawyer and I produced Exhibit 5.
When was Exhibit 5 executed?
Exhibit 5 was executed on October 15th, 2022.
Can you tell me what happened when the will was signed?
Sure. I watched Nano review the entire will in detail, and then I observed Nano sign everything. As you can see from Exhibit 5, there's pen marks on every single one where he just mentally checked off through the bulleted list before signing. And Nano understood the process much better than any of my other clients.
Excuse me, counsel, do we have Exhibit 5 admitted already? I'm not showing that. Did you already give it to your witness?
No. Defense offers Exhibit 5.
You're offering it into evidence now? Okay, plaintiff's counsel, do you have any objections?
Yes, Your Honor, lack of foundation.
Okay, in response to that?
Your Honor, this is an important part of my case because it talks about how Wilson experienced Alex's role in the will.
Okay, so she's objecting to the Exhibit 5 because she's saying that you haven't laid the foundation to show that Exhibit 5 is what it purports, you know, that it is, that she is qualified to say what it is. So you need to say whether you've laid that foundation or not.
Exhibit 5 is the charity trust of beneficiaries, and it has the percentages, and it shows whose name is on the list and who gets a certain amount of money. And so I'm showing how Alex is presented on the list of beneficiaries.
Okay, so I do believe that your witness has, even though you didn't technically hand it to her, she's said that it's her signature and that she prepared that document. So I believe you've laid enough foundation for that exhibit. So I'm gonna overrule the plaintiff's objection and admit Exhibit 5 into evidence.
Your Honor, may it reflect that I'm showing the opposing counsel the exhibit.
Okay, since we've already admitted it, let's just skip that part. You can go ahead and continue asking her about the exhibit or ask to publish it, whichever you want.
Okay, have you ever heard Nano call Alex Ace?
Yes, I've only referred to him call Alex by the nickname Ace. He called him that many times.
When?
Well, Nano would say Alex and Ace in the same sentence a lot, and then sometimes he would even say, "You're my ace valet, Alex," to him.
Okay. Has Alex been a constant part of Nano's wills?
Yeah, he has been. Even in Exhibit 5, he's in the will.
Okay. Did you and Nano ever discuss leaving all his assets to a single person or entity?
Yes, we had talked about it many times.
Okay. Can you tell me about what was discussed?
Well, he mentioned the idea of leaving everything to one person several times. I, as his estate lawyer, always advised against it because it can be too crazy and complicated for one person. But out of curiosity, I would often ask who he would pick. And one time in 2020, he said that he would pick Alex to be that one person.
Okay.
Objection, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Hearsay. Hearsay. The
Okay,
question.
and response?
Your Honor, this is a proper lay opinion because this is what Wilton experienced when he was talking to Mr. Design in a conversation. And
your name is Ricola. What is your last name?
Riccio.
What's your last name?
Riccio.
Riccio. Okay. So she's saying that it's hearsay. So what is your response to that? That your witness can't say what Nano Design said.
Well, it's what. Wait, can you repeat what you just said?
Your witness testified to what Nano Design said, and the counsel is objecting to that as hearsay. So what is your response to that?
I'm saying that it's not hearsay because it's a legal reference, not true or false. It was their expectation to hearsay due to Rule 801 on examinations.
What's the exception again?
Rule 801 on exemptions.
And could you tell me what Rule 801 says again?
Rule 801 is about exception to hearsay.
I understand you're saying it's an exception to hearsay, but which one?
Rule 801.
But what does it say the exception is? Like, exceptions like excited utterance or, record of a government thing. What does it say?
Can I confer with my co-counsel?
Yes, you may. Yes.
Okay. It's part of the statement. It's not hearsay.
It's not hearsay because of why?
Because it's part of the statement.
Of what statement?
Wilton's statement.
Will I handle it statement?
Yes, ma'am.
So she said this, not Nano, is that what you're saying?
No. Wilton, Nano said it to Wilton.
Okay, so that is still hearsay. If Nano said it to Wilton, whether she put it in her statement or not, it's still hearsay, so the objection is sustained. You can move on, counsel.
Okay, now Nano likes to write his wills to different charities. What kinds of charities would he write them to?
Well, Nana would usually make his will out to charities that he felt bad or guilty for, or that he thought would be the next big thing. And at one point, he was even going to leave, I would say, around $500 million to some foundation to save a snail darter fish. But California took care of that.
Okay, since the Aquatic Center of Exploration was already doing so well, would it be out of character for Nano to give his entire fortune to them?
Yes, crystal clear left the Aquatic Center of Exploration a large amount of money in the previous year. So there's no reason for Nano to leave his foundation to him, making it out of character.
The question calls for speculation.
Okay, what was your question again?
My question was, since the Aquatic Center of Exploration was already doing so well, would it be out of character to give his entire fortune to them?
Okay, that does call for speculation. Objection sustained. Rephrase your question or move on, please.
Your Honor, I would like to strike the question from record.
Okay, the question and any response that was given before the objection was made are hereby stricken from the record and the jury will disregard them. And you may continue, counsel.
Okay. Before Nano's death, what was his mental state like?
Well, Nano was definitely a goofball, no doubt.
Speculation and lack of personal knowledge.
Okay, so you need to object before the witness starts responding. If you're going to object if the question calls for speculation. Your question was exactly what was, say it again one more time.
Before Nano's death, what was his mental state like?
Okay, your objection is overruled. The witness may respond as far as what she perceived, but she can't speculate what, she just can only say what she observed. Go ahead.
Well, Nano was definitely a goofball. He was seen as a bit weird to some people, but it was honestly just because he was a genius. He had a weird personality, but that is not the same thing as being crazy. And before Nano died, I saw him on December 15th, 2022, where we reviewed in detail every single part of his will, including Exhibit 5, which he was fully aware at the time of what he was doing. And I can, as his estate lawyer, I have to ask him questions before we go over the will to make sure he is mentally able to answer the questions.
No more questions, Your Honor. I pass the witness.
Thank you. You may proceed with cross.
Good evening, Ms. Handelin. Is it okay if I ask you a few questions?
Yes.
You were the personal estate attorney for Nano Design, correct?
Yes.
And you worked for Mr. Design since 2017, correct?
About 7 years now.
And in those almost 7 years that you worked for him, Mr. Design would change his will beneficiaries numerous times, correct?
Every week we would have a scheduled appointment, but sometimes they would get canceled due to issues arising.
But if there were no issues that would come up, he would still be the pattern of him changing his will was still numerous and consistent. Is this correct?
Consistent, it wouldn't be like every week, but we would change it quite often depending on if he would make it to his appointments or not, or if we were able to work on it.
And these changes, sorry. And when you would meet with Mr. Design to edit his will, he always seemed to be fully understanding of the changes he was making, correct?
Yeah, he was one of my best clients and understood his legal right very well.
Did Nano suggested leaving one beneficiary in his will, correct?
Yes, he often would talk about leaving it to someone, but I would always suggest against it. It's just too complicated for one person to receive everything, but it can happen.
And so, according to what you're saying, you advised him against it, correctly?
Yeah, so leaving it to just one charity or one person can be difficult, but sometimes he would really be adamant on it, and he would even mention Alex, all the time.
But every time that you would suggest him not leaving it to one beneficiary, he would listen to you at the end of the day. Is this correct?
Yes, he was a very good client and he would listen, but sometimes he still insisted on it. So I like to do what's best for the client and still make them happy.
So would you say that you were the one who upheld Mr. Design's will?
I could say I had a good influence in his decisions as I know legally what is right and wrong. So I would say over the 7 years, I helped him a lot, but he was one of my best clients. He knew everything and would suggest things that most of my other clients wouldn't even know about.
Ms. Hanlett, did you feel resentful when you discovered that you were not named as a beneficiary on Nano's will?
I did. He did mention that he would leave it to me, and I offered to give him another lawyer because leaving your own lawyer on a will can be tricky and it's just not right to do. I would offer him some of my close friends, but.
And in fact, you did react physically and through things, correct?
In the heat of the moment, I was upset because he had promised to leave it to me.
All right, say again.
Objection relevant.
Respond.
I'm building on the emotional side that Ms. Handelet felt and connecting it from my prior question on the resentment she felt on being left out of the prior will.
But what does that have to do with the case? The objection is sustained. Let's move on.
Ms. Handelet, you assisted Nano in constructing what is known as the list, correct?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Ms. Handelet, you assisted Nano in constructing what is known as the list, correct?
Oh, yes, I did. Exhibit 5, I believe.
Could you, and the list would often include different groups and organizations, correct?
Yes, and it even included Alex in it.
But mostly in this will, where there were mainly different groups and organizations labeled.
Yeah, Nano would leave his things to just the most random charities. Like he had one about fish, which was honestly weird, but that's just Nano's personality. He's very gracious of his money and willing to donate to charities all the time.
Thank you. In fact, individual beneficiaries were often rarely present, correct?
I'm sorry, did you say that again?
Individual beneficiaries were often rarely present, correct?
I guess you could say that, but Alex was almost always mentioned every single will.
Thank you, Your Honor. We pass the witness.
Can you redirect?
No, ma'am.
Okay, the witness may step down. And defense, call your second witness, please. Or your next witness.
Sorry, Your Honor. The defense would like to call Alex Chern Eubanks to the stand.
Ms. Eubanks, you're reminded that you're under oath. Defense, you may go ahead.
Thank you. Can you please state your name and age for the jury?
Hi, I'm Alex Chern Eubanks, and I'm 37 years old.
How were you connected to Nano's case?
Well, I'm his best friend and his closest assistant.
Were y'all good friends?
He was a very good friend. He even helps me with my living expenses.
Oh, wow. Where did y'all meet?
We met in college at MIT.
Did he do very well in school?
Yes, he was the
Objection, Your
smartest.
Honor.
Go ahead with your objection.
Relevance.
Response?
Your Honor, I'm establishing the intelligence of Nano.
And, okay, I believe that it's relevant, so the objection is overruled. Go ahead, counsel.
So would you continue with, did he do well in school?
Yes, he was the smartest person I had ever met there.
What happened after college?
Well, I began working for him as his personal assistant and valet.
So did he become your boss?
Yeah, I was working for him and I got paid.
What was your friendship like?
We were really good friends, and he took very good care of me, and I would do the same for him. I knew him so well that he would even let me manage the staff and select his wardrobe.
Did you two have any nicknames for each other since you were just such great friends?
Yeah, there was this one day when I let him borrow one of my handkerchiefs with my initials ACE on it and he said, "You're an ace." And that's the nickname stuck.
Did Nano ever call you by your nickname?
Oh yeah, he called me that all the time. Like I said, we were best friends.
What happened after you started working for him?
He began contacting the Aquatic Center for Exploration to go on a dive about 20,000 feet or 600 meters deep.
And what did you begin to see as he began working with this company?
He started to not think very well, I guess.
How did he process thoughts?
Not well. It was very rough and hard for
Your
him
Honor.
to do so.
Go ahead.
Lack of personal knowledge.
Your Honor,
Response.
this witness was able to see how Nano responded to these situations, and
You're-
it was in her
Was
statement.
how did Nano process thoughts though? So maybe you need to rephrase the question if you want to know what the witness perceives. So the objection is sustained.
I'll rephrase. How did you see Nano process these situations and thoughts?
Well, from what I observed, it didn't seem like he did very well. It seemed like it was very rough and hard for him to do so.
So was he able to think well? And your
Objection, Your Honor. Lack of personal knowledge.
Response.
I'll rephrase the question.
Okay, objection sustained. Go ahead.
So in your sight or in your preference, was he able to think through things well?
I don't believe so. He freely gave $100 million to a center dedicated to researching water.
Is it critical to so what happened about what happened next after he donated to this company?
Well, he really wanted to go on this dive, and
Okay.
he was sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So would you mind giving me the information on this dive?
Sure. So, I believe it was 20,000 feet deep dive, and it's, to me, it seemed like a life or death kind of situation.
Okay. Was he thinking straight to you when he decided?
Objection, Your Honor. Lack of personal knowledge.
Your Honor, I said, was he thinking straight to you?
May I
Not
respond?
what.
Okay, so let me, so Ms. Attorney, let me hear the response. Say again, so what was your response?
Mine?
Or
Defense's response.
I said, was he thinking straight in your eyes? To you, was he thinking straight? Not scientifically, was there something else?
So, and what do you say?
it's cutting off. Oh, I'm pretty sure that was not the original question, but Mrs. Eubanks wouldn't know whether or not he was thinking straight or not.
Okay, I think that you did it before I finished the original question is maybe the issue. So why don't I sustain this objection, but defense counsel, if you'll go ahead and say or rephrase the question to where you get the whole question out, and plaintiff's counsel, make sure you don't object until he said the entire question. Thanks.
Thank you. So, from what you saw, was he thinking straight when he decided to sign the documents for being able to go in the tutu?
No, like I said in my addendum, he was not thinking well when he signed up for it.
In this situation, would he think of clarifying the difference between you and the company? Did that seem valid to you?
Objection, Your Honor. Again, lack of personal knowledge.
Response?
Your Honor, I again asked her opinion, not the true fact.
Okay, but you asked her opinion, so you can ask her like what she observed, but not what the defendant thought. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the objection sustained, rephrase your question.
Ma'am. Did it seem to you that he wouldn't think of clarifying the difference between you and the company at this time?
Not at this time, I don't think, because this was a very serious and concerning about $14 billion. He would have had to think very hard about this, and because it seems that he wasn't thinking well, this would have been a bad time to have done this.
Do you know if Nano enjoyed making money?
Well, I assume so. He
Objection, Your Honor.
continued to make money.
Go ahead with your objection.
Lack of personal knowledge.
Your Honor, I asked if Nano enjoyed making money, not if he did or not.
May I respond?
Go ahead.
Mrs. Eubanks wouldn't know whether or not he did or did not enjoy making money. That's all up to Nano's state of mind, not Mrs. Eubanks.
But she would have an opinion on it from what she had seen since he was her best friend.
Okay, I think that with her relationship with Mr. Design, that she had enough interaction to observe the way he behaved with regard to money. So I will allow the question. So objections overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. So did it seem that Nano enjoyed making money?
Well, I assume so, as he continued to make more, and it takes a lot of effort.
So did it seem that it had value to him?
As I previously mentioned, he took the effort, so it must have some value in his eyes.
And Nano gave $100 million. Did Nano give $100 million to the Aquatic Center for Exploration?
Objection, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Asked and answered.
Response.
Your Honor, I was bringing up the topic because it has been a minute. I would like to review what we had been over, so I asked the question to prepare for my next questions.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and allow that for now. So, but take care not to be too repetitive. Objection overruled.
Thank you. So did he give $100 million to the aquatic center?
Yes.
And would you have to think about giving that much money away?
Well, if it was me, it would require a lot of deep thought and planning, which, in my opinion, Nano didn't seem to use recently.
And what about for $14 billion?
Well, yes, especially for someone who isn't thinking well. 14 billion is so much more.
I pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay, you may proceed with your cross.
Yes, Your Honor. Hello, Mrs. Eubanks. Is it okay if I ask you a few questions today?
Sure.
So you have known Mr. Design since college, correct?
Yeah.
Matter of fact, you guys would say you are best friends?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
To add on, you would say you guys were as close as ever, correct?
Oh, yeah, we are the closest of close friends ever. Like, we are so close.
Thank you. So close that you even became his personal assistant, right?
Oh, yeah, I was such good friends with him. Like, it just seemed like a good idea.
Okay. Nano paid for your shared house, utilities, bills, and food, is that right?
Yeah, he did pay for my house and all that
And
stuff.
thank you. And you were in charge of any and everything he needed to get done, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance?
Response.
Your Honor, I'm establishing the foundation for the relationship that her and Nano Design had.
Okay, I will allow the question to lay the foundation for the testimony. So objection overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let me re-ask the question. You were in charge of any and everything he needed to have done, correct?
Oh, yeah, I took care of a lot of things for him.
So you were in charge of taking him to all his appointments, is that right?
Oh, yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Okay. So you also took him to his doctor's appointments?
Yeah, for the most part,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you. As his best friend, you never saw anything visibly wrong with his health, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Oh, sorry. Never mind. Withdrawn.
Okay. I'm going to re-ask the question. You never saw anything visibly wrong with his health, correct?
Well, ever? No. In the past, I have seen stuff wrong with his health.
Okay. So I guess correlate. Did your opinion ever change on that?
Oh, more recently, his physical health. Yeah, I would say his physical health was fine to my observation, but of course, I'm not a doctor, so I wouldn't know for sure.
Okay, thank you. Apart from his physical health, you believe Nano had some mental health problems, correct?
Yeah, he seemed to have some trouble with things.
You even believe that these problems would affect his focus on work, correct?
Oh, yeah, these problems seem to do that.
And Nano often got super fixated on certain ideas or groups, correct?
Could you say that again?
That Nano often got super fixated on certain ideas or groups, correct?
I'm
Do you want
not
me to rephrase
sure.
the question?
Yes, please.
Nano would often get really obsessed with like certain groups or ideas, correct?
Yeah, he would.
Okay. So moving on, you did take him to dive and survive, correct?
Oh, yeah, I did.
This was for his diving lesson?
Yeah, it was.
Nano snapped at you when you tried correcting your destination to dive and survive, correct?
Yes.
And did this behavior concern you at all?
I mean, yeah.
Okay. Nano had a physical exam with Terry close after that trip, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And he had some physical tests done, correct?
To what I recall, yes.
But during the second test, Nano suffered a rather hard fall, correct? A rather hard fall, sorry. Yeah.
A rather hard fall. It was just a fall, yeah. He did have a little fall.
Okay, thank you. And despite this fall, Miss Terry Cloth still signed him off, correct?
Oh, yeah, she did.
Okay, so by mid-October, you began seeing a change in Nano's behavior, correct?
Oh, yeah, it was around there, yeah.
Okay, and this was after numerous visits to the aquatic center, is that right?
Yes, to what I believe, yeah.
Okay. Did you ever think that Nano was starting to lose it?
Like, after mid-October?
Yes.
Yes, I did believe so.
And by mid-October, you had become clear of the plan that was before taking him to the Harbor Center, correct?
What plan exactly?
His plan to go visit the Ellie.
Oh, yes.
So just to clarify, you were completely aware of the fact that that was his plan.
Yeah, it was what I assumed because that's with my own personal
Yes or no?
investigation.
Could I get a yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. But you never tried stopping him, right?
I thought about it, but he's just so strong-minded that the only way I could have done that would be with physical
Did you
force,
yes
and
or no?
that's illegal.
But did you yes or no?
Did I ever try to stop him?
Yes.
No.
Okay. You knew that the tutu was not certified for civilian passengers, correct?
It was not.
Okay. And did this bring up any concerns for you?
Oh, yes, it definitely did.
Okay. But you didn't want to bring it up to Nano, correct?
No, I didn't. I was terrified he would get mad.
And although you didn't want to bring it up to him, you still contacted Will Hanlett to speak on Nano's mental state, correct?
Yes, I thought he was the best person to discuss it and see if we both had the same observations.
You thought that his real estate lawyer was the best option to discuss this with?
Yes, he's also one of his close friends too.
Okay. Your Honor, I pass the witness.
Any redirect?
No, ma'am.
Okay, Ms. Eubanks, you may step down. Defense, call your last witness, please.
Take it from here.
Sorry for the delay, Your Honor. The defense calls Dr. Max Northshire.
Hey, Dr. Northshire, you are reminded that you're under oath. You may go ahead with your direct examination.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. Could you please state your name for the record?
My name is Dr. Max Northshire.
And could you state your credentials and expertise for the jury?
Yes, of course. I'm an expert in cognitive neuroscience. I have a PhD from Harvard, actually, in that exact subject. I was in the TBI analysis behavioral unit for many, many years as an analyst myself. And I currently own my own consulting firm.
Okay. And just would you mind giving a brief explanation of what cognitive neuroscience is, how it works?
Yes, of course. So cognitive neuroscience uses basically I look at the brain, see how we process things, see how some little things can make it so it's clear that there's some issues with somebody, maybe mentally. It's just lots of looking into how the brain works and what it does, and like just into mental illness too, like how just how just everything affects the brain and just how it works and everything worked.
Narrative.
Objection overruled. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. So do you analyze handwriting, Dr. Northshire?
I do.
Okay. And what do you do when you analyze handwriting?
I'll look into the handwriting, see if there's any signs that there could be any mental deficiencies with the person who ever wrote it, whether maybe their handwriting has degraded over time or anything of the sort.
Okay. And were you commissioned to review the evidence in this case, including Nano's handwriting?
I was. That's actually why I was originally hired, was to look at the handwriting, make sure it aligned with Nano design.
Okay. And in that process, did you examine the evidence of Nano's behavior prior to the dive?
I did. I was asked to also look beforehand just to help get an overall idea.
Okay. And were you also asked to examine the medical and observational reports of Nano's conduct prior to the dive?
Yes.
Okay. And was any of that out of the ordinary for an investigation?
No.
Okay. So in your professional opinion, based on the evidence you've examined prior to the dive, did Nano show any signs of a poor mental state?
In my professional opinion, looking back at all the evidence, I would say that he showed some signs of dementia and other mental deficiencies.
Okay. So would you mind laying out some particular pieces of evidence for the jury that, in your opinion, support this?
Yes, of course. It seems like he has forgotten names with Jackie Lung because he called him a different name. It also seems that he has forgotten a place where he's gone multiple times, like what happened on the tower incident. And it has seemed that he has forgotten something as simple as an appointment.
Okay. And so in your opinion, professional opinion, obviously, was there any justifiable reason these shouldn't have been investigated further?
In my professional opinion, no, any doctor should have looked into it further to see if maybe he did have dementia or maybe he did have something mentally wrong.
Okay. Even if Nano seemed otherwise physically capable?
Yes, I think it's very important to remember that physical abilities are very, very different than mental capabilities.
Okay. And would physical problems like keeping balance, in your opinion, be symptoms potentially of mental compromise?
It depends, but if we talk about balance, well then yes, because balance takes both mental and physical abilities, I would say. And therefore something that's balanced would be a key sign, just like for example, how Nano fell off the treadmill. I just think that balance is a great sign of someone's mental capabilities lacking.
All right. And I'd like to direct your attention towards the pre-admitted piece of evidence that's been marked as Exhibit 1. Have you examined the entirety of Exhibit 1 as part of your investigation?
I have.
Okay. And were there any patterns or things like that you noticed in Nano's handwriting throughout Exhibit 1?
Yes, it seems like it has decreased over time. And for example, 1C shows rambling and misspelling, and some others show some signs about sometimes him talking about being lonely and sad and depressed, and this all seems to point towards depression. And some of them are just so atrocious and truncated that I think these all are great signs that point to him lacking in mental capabilities.
Okay, so let's sort of move on to Nano's last days on the 2-2. In your opinion, based on your experience, is there a reasonable probability that a loss of oxygen would affect Nano's cognitive capacity?
Your Honor.
Objection.
Objection.
Go ahead.
I believe this is improper opinion because I don't believe this witness has been entered as an expert witness.
Respond.
Respond, Your Honor. The rules of evidence that govern this trial do not require the formal tendering of a witness as an expert, just requires that sufficient ground be laid. And we believe that we've laid sufficient ground for Dr. Northshire's expertise on matters of cognition.
Okay, the objection is overruled. The witness is instructed to answer the question.
Thank you.
Can you please repeat your question? Sorry.
Oh, sure. So in your professional opinion, is there a reasonable medical probability that a loss of oxygen would affect Mr. Design's cognitive capacity?
Absolutely. Looking into it further, at 50% of oxygen, there would be what I've learned is that there's a lack of mental capabilities, and then further on, less than 10% of oxygen, there'll be unconsciousness, and then at less of, I believe, 7 or 8, it's death.
Okay. And so based on your forensic investigation of the evidence and your general expertise, how would a passenger experience a loss of consciousness?
Well, in that way, well, it seems that with my studies and looking into how the tutu worked, it seems that it would have been very, very gradual and most likely unknown to Nana or Jesse as it was happening.
Okay. All right. And so I'd like to direct your attention again to Exhibit 1F, again, pre-admitted into evidence. So how would you describe, in your professional opinion, Nano's handwriting in this portion?
It's so just very, very messy and kind of all over the place. I would say that if you look at some of the handwriting earlier, it would seem to be that it has degraded since then.
Okay. So just to clarify, has Nano's handwriting degraded over time?
It seems to be yes.
Okay. And once again, just in your opinion, is the handwriting on, for example, Exhibit 1G, is this substantially worse than before the dive?
But in my professional opinion, yes, I'd say it is even worse.
Okay. And so based on your experience in this area, what does that indicate?
This, in my experience and looking back at what I've learned, I would say that this again shows a mental decline. How is the mental capacity is slowly and declining.
Okay. Assuming that the date and time on the will are accurate, how long was that signed into the dive?
That would have been signed over 60 hours into the dive.
Wow. How would you describe?
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say that would have been well over the 48-hour time limit of oxygen that was supposedly on there.
Okay. And so how would you describe, just turning your attention again to the pre-admitted Exhibit 12, how would you describe Jesse Watkins' handwriting on that note?
Jesse Watkins' handwriting is just awful, and even though there's no sign of prior handwriting to the dive, it is still just atrocious and probably shows signs of mental deficiencies.
Okay. And was there anything else of interest in Exhibit 12?
Yes, absolutely. In Exhibit 12, he actually addresses his wife, let me look back, as Dorothy, even though her name is Donna.
Okay. Is it possible, in your professional opinion, that Nano could have maybe rationed his oxygen supply to last longer?
That would have been 25% more oxygen than that was supposedly on the dive. So my professional opinion, and think of it scientifically, I would say no.
Okay, great. So the defense has no further questions. We pass the witness.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Ready? Okay. Good afternoon, Dr. Norshire. Is it okay if I ask you a few questions?
Of course.
In your statement, you mentioned that Nano showed many symptoms of general dementia and other mental faults, correct?
Correct.
Just for confirmation, you have never met Mr. Design, correct?
No, I've never met him personally, no.
And you have never even spoken to Mr. Design, correct?
That is correct.
So all of your statements about Mr. Design's mental state are hypothetical. They're from your opinion, correct? Since you yourself were not inside the sub and you have never met him, correct?
This is correct, but it's also heard from what I've heard on
Do you have
Kelsey.
any prior knowledge of Mr. Design's personality and character traits before this case?
Before this case, no.
Thank you. So all of these that you're speaking of, like your opinions of his mental states and his personality, they really could have been normal for Mr. Design, correct? Since you would have had no way of knowing how he acted before the submersible, since you personally did not know him, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. The question calls for speculation on part of the witness.
Response.
She's an expert opinion.
Your Honor, this witness is very capable at her job. She's very known for this field of this. I'm just wondering if the, I'm just wondering. I'll move on, Your Honor.
Wait, okay. Then objection is sustained. Go ahead.
In your statement, you mentioned that his handwriting factors into his mental capacity, correct?
Most of the time it does, yes.
You also mentioned that Nano lost his senses in the dark environment, correct?
I believe that is what I said in my testimony, yes.
Thank you. As a doctor, you know that the fear of a person's surroundings, as if it was dark, can affect somebody's, can affect someone negatively, correct?
I mean, it can, yes.
Thank you. So another reason for Mr. Design's handwriting and spelling could have been because of the fact that it was dark and he was scared instead of loss of confidence, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. The question calls again for speculation by the witness, not a professional opinion.
Your Honor?
Go ahead.
Your Honor, I'm just simply asking her opinion if this is capable, if this is a possibility of what had happened, since she is an expert in this.
Okay, and the witness may respond in her professional opinion. The objection is overruled.
My professional opinion, it could be, but these are all possibilities.
Thank you. And since we're on the topic of Mr. Design's handwriting, it was true that he was not often seen physically writing on paper, correct? He was only seen writing privately scribbling in his notebook, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. That's a compound question.
Your Honor, I can break up my question.
Okay, the objection sustained. Ask one question at a time. Go ahead.
You do know that it is known that Mr. Design was not often seen writing on paper. He was writing in his notebook.
From what I have heard, yes.
Thank you. So is it possible that Mr. Design's handwriting was already on the messier side before adding the situations of the submersible, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. This calls for speculation by the witness. She doesn't have experience with Mr. She doesn't have experience with Mr. Design prior to investigating the evidence.
Okay,
Your
but you've offered evidence of her handwriting expertise, so I will allow it. Objection overruled.
Thank you.
Will you please repeat the question?
Yes, ma'am. So is it possible that Mr. Design's handwriting was already on the messier side before the added stress and situation of the submersible, correct?
It is a possibility, yes.
Thank you. In your statement, you admitted that you do not believe that Jackie Lung's breathing training with Mr. Design did anything to help him with the submersible, correct?
I believe that is what I said in my testimony, yes. So, yes.
Thank you. But isn't it possible that the breathing exercises and training made for his high stress and low oxygen environments would have helped Mr. Design with his breathing in high stress and low oxygen environments?
Well, if Mr. Design was aware, yes, but we do not know if he was aware. Like I said, it was most likely gradual, release of oxygen.
I'm just looking for a yes or no answer.
Well, then can you please rephrase your question?
Yes. I was just saying that isn't it possible that the breathing exercises and training that he received from Jackie Lung could have helped Mr. Design in a high stress and low oxygen environment? It is possible, correct?
It is possible, yes.
Thank you. We pass the witness, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
Okay, the witness may step down. Does counsel need 1 minute to prepare for closing?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you have 1 minute.
They're pretty tied now. Yeah. The rest of our kids with them. But we have to close the deal. And we talked to Olivia, you know, and we, Nathan has to close it. I think it's gonna.
Your Honor, we are ready.
Vince, are y'all ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, plaintiff, proceed with your closing arguments.
Yes, ma'am. For one, could I reserve 1 minute for my rebuttal, my closing rebuttal?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. May it please the court, opposing counsel, and members of the jury. Today, you have heard about TLC. This all started one day when Mr. Design contacted the Aquatic Center for Exploration to set up a submersible trip to the shipwreck called the Ellie, and he would not take no for an answer. After multiple weeks of preparation, on November 1st, Nano Design and Jesse Watkins went thousands of feet underwater in the tutu, and sadly, they never reserved. While inside the submersible, Mr. Design wrote in his notebook a will signing all of his assets to ACE, which in this case stands for the Aquatic Center for Exploration. As the plaintiff today, we have the burden of providing a preponderance of the evidence that Mr. Design was aware and competent when he signed his will. Although we are confident that we have met this burden, if you find that Mr. Design was not competent at the time, then you must decide who ACE is. Both parties in this case have a burden of providing the identity of ACE by preponderance of the evidence. Today, we have proven our burden through our three witnesses. First, we have shown you Terry, Mr. Design's personal physician who worked with him for years monitoring Mr. Design's health with weekly checkups as he found him to be in perfect health, despite what the defense has tried to tell you. You've also heard from our second witness, Chris Linclair. Mr. Linclair is the owner of the Aquatic Center of Exploration, also known as ACE, which brings us to L, logo. He first came up with the idea when he wrote the logo on the back of a napkin, and then the company took off. It got so big that it gained the attention of the billionaire Nano Design. Lastly, you heard from Jackie Lung. Miss Lung was a talented and skilled diving instructor. Miss Lung had worked with Mr. Design closely and found him to have had a higher than average lung capacity that would have helped with his competence inside of this submersible during the depletion of oxygen. In fact, Miss Lung even claimed that Mr. Design performed like a trained diver in the water, saying that he barely even needed to come up for air. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defense is trying to twist the story, but you cannot let them blindside you. The defense has brought Alex Eubanks, Dr. Norshire, and Miss Handlet to distract you from the facts of today's case. Let's talk about Miss Eubanks first. The defense tried to paint the picture of Mr. Design leaving all of his money to his old friend, which would have been a nice thing for your friend to leave his fortune to, but that is simply not true. In all of the revisions that had been made to Mr. Design's will, he had never left more than a small chunk of his assets to Miss Eubanks. as we have heard from Mr. Design's own personal attorney, Mr. Handlet. Now, Ms. Handlet themselves said that Nano Design was notorious for changing his will. So this shows just how understandable it is for Mr. Design to change his will at the last moments to help fund and support the company ACE, who was helping him fulfill his dream to see the Ellie. And finally, you heard from Dr. Norshire. Dr. Norshire has tried to confuse you today with forensic jargon, but at the end of the day, that's all it is. Dr. Norshire says that there is no way for Mr. Design to have been mentally capable during the time he wrote the will, but he has no way of knowing this. For you, she has never even seen or nor talked to Mr. Design. And two, she simply was not there inside of the submersible when Nano Design and Jackie and with Jesse Watkins. We, the plaintiff today, have shown you repeatedly that the story the defense is trying to paint for you is simply not true. When you go to deliberate today, remember TLC, Terry Cloth, logo, and competence. We have more than proved our burden to show that Mr. Design was aware of his actions during his final moments inside of the submersible, of signing his assets to ACE, the Aquatic Center of Exploration. Thank you.
Thank you. And please go ahead and proceed with your closing.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, members of the jury, may it please the court. Throughout this trial, we've seen one clear, consistent thread. It's been a battle of questions that the plaintiff has raised and answers that we've provided, speculations versus hard scientific facts. On the balance, the plaintiff has failed to prove the terms of the charge. They haven't proven to you that Mr. Design was competent, and they haven't proven to you that the handwritten will he made while dying of oxygen deprivation actually even intended to mean their company. Now, let's turn to some of the things that they hinge their case on. This idea of TLC. They talked about how, well, Dr. Cloth saw that Mr. Design was in perfect health. But as we've seen, as we've seen from the testimony of Dr. Northshire, who's examined all the medical records, all the accounts of Mr. Design's behavior in this case, Dr. Cloth was ignoring clear, obvious signs of mental deterioration. Just because he was willfully ignorant to this doesn't mean, or rather it shows that his testimony is eliding the truth. It's ignoring basic facts, that there were clear signs of decline. His physical health may have been fine, but the mind and the body were separate. They talked about how, well, Chris Leclerc founded the company, but Chris Leclerc not only sort of admitted in his own testimony to effectively lying to the Texoma Navy after being paid $100 million. They want us to trust the same man who's already lied to the government that this time he's telling the truth. Of course, this time he has more than 100 million reasons why to lie. This time he has 14 billion reasons. They talked about how, well, Jackie Lung had shown that there was evidence of higher than average lung capacity. Jackie Lung isn't a scientist. Jackie Lung has had no medical training of any kind. Jackie Lung has never been able to scientifically verify his opinions on intermittent hypoxic training. Not one kind of study, not one kind of statistical verification, not one iota of objective evidence other than his own opinion. The opinion of an untrained person who's pursued this in an amateur capacity with no with no formal training. But in the end, finding with the defendant is also to find with common sense. We've seen from Ms. Eubanks' testimony and from the testimony of Ms. Handlet that Alex was regularly called Ace. That's her initials. She's been called that since her and Nano met in college. There's no evidence that Nano ever referred to the Aquatic Center for Exploration as ACE, but there is extensive evidence that he referred to Alex as Ace. And that makes sense in the context of their friendship. Dr. Cloth may never have heard it, but Dr. Cloth saw them once a week, not every day. If you look at the people who are actually around Nano, they both agree. Alex and Wilton agree that she was often called Ace. And this comes to the second problem, the fact that arguing that the will was intended to mean Ace, as in the aquatic center, flies in the face of common sense. We've already heard testimony from the CEO of the center himself, Mr. Leclerc, that, well, actually, he had already been given $100 million by Mr. Design. $100 million. And yet now they say that, well, he intended to give us more than the $100 million gift. He intended to give us $14 billion. Nano's already supported the foundation. Why would he support it again? But moreover, their only answer to the fact that Nano clearly died of oxygen deprivation is that, well, it could have been the dark. But darkness doesn't cause your handwriting to slowly deteriorate over time. Darkness doesn't cause you to, according to the medical reports, be found dead of oxygen deprivation. Darkness doesn't cause the other person in the submarine to refer to his wife by the wrong name. None of those things add up. None of that narrative makes sense. Their only response is to quote an untrained medical, essentially a medical amateur who thinks that somehow, with no verification, Nano's lung capacity might have improved. When you look at the actual experts, when you look at people like Dr. Northshire, they all agree. There's no way that happened. It's common sense. Would a billionaire leave $14 billion to his closest friend, who he'd already said he would consider leaving his fortune to, or to a nameless company he'd already once given money? Thanks.
Rebuttal?
You gonna redirect?
Plaintiff's rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed? Your Honor, we the plaintiff have shown you repeatedly through our witnesses that Mr. Design was more than capable to sign and understand his to sign his assets over to ACE, the Aquatic Center. He knew what he was doing inside of the submersible. He had the capability to understand what he was doing. Today, the clear and consistent threat was no one other than Alex. Alex, his own best friend, ignored his deteriorating health, as we had heard in her statement today. She said herself that he was acting weird, but did nothing to stop it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our trial unless anybody has any rules violations to report. Oh, okay, then the trial is concluded.
We'll give you a chance, Anna, to think through everything, and if you want to do a judgment on that later, you can just let Justin know and he can let me know, unless you're ready to say something now.
I can rule now as far as who I think won this trial.
Okay.
And I'm ruling in favor of the defendants. I think the defendants won today.
Okay, well, I appreciate that very much. I think this was a great experiment. I hope we can do it again, Justin. And I appreciate you did a really good job as the judge today, Anna.
Thank you.
Really good. So, do you have any questions before before we end this, Justin?
No, I don't.
Do you want me to give any feedback or just
Love it if you feel you're ready to do that.
your students have time for it? I have a lot of notes. So.
Okay, very good.
In the opening, the plaintiffs, you need to slow down, and also you're saying you need to say the evidence will show instead of just telling your story, because you were just telling the story and you never said that the evidence is going to show. So rethink that in your opening. On the defense's opening, I have some positive comments. Your hand gestures were good. I thought the defense opening was really good. Plaintiff's Chris LeClaire. On exhibit 2, it was already admitted, so you didn't need to lay the foundation. So you just need to, and both sides, if your exhibit's already admitted, just say, I'd like to show, Your Honor, may I approach the witness with what's already been admitted as exhibit whatever. So, and both sides weren't really doing that. I did have that you did a good job at remembering to publish it to the jury anyway, and that your signposting was good in your direct. On the cross, I have we had compound questions, so be careful about that. Y'all know compound questions are whenever you ask something that is really 2 different questions and so you're asking together. So the witness might respond to one and not the other. And that exactly happened at some point in this. I don't remember which side, but you asked a compound question. The witness only responded to one and you just moved on and didn't get the response to the other part of it. On plaintiff's witness 2, I would say whenever it's your witness, I would call her Dr. Clock because you want her to have that prestige of being a doctor because you're trying to show that she knows what she's doing, whereas the other side is not, but I would call her doctor. Whenever you were saying that the witness said the wrong answer, you might be able to object that it's an unfair extrapolation from the facts in the packet, but like I said in my ruling, instead I would just bring it up and cross and ask her about it and be like, well, in your direct examination, you said this, right? Yes, but actually, or even, you could even impeach her on cross if she's still sticking to that. So if you think you want to use the time to do that, but I think whatever this was, unless you needed that date, I wouldn't have even worried about it. Something about, when you were asking about loyalty and all this, they eventually did it, but a lot of your questions on cross were calling for speculation. So be careful about that. You might want to look back at your questions on that cross and see how you can redo it to where it doesn't seem so obvious that you're asking her to speculate. And then also the relevance, if there's an objection to relevance, look back at what relevance means. And on every single question you have, think about what you're trying to prove with this question. And then if they object to relevance, say, Your Honor, I'm trying to show X. And so that will tell her, the judge, why it's relevant. Just looking for yes. Oh yeah, whenever you're just looking for yes or no, be sure to strike the testimony because somebody had asked that and I sustained it. And then the person had said stuff afterwards and you didn't strike that testimony after yes or no. So it was still on the record. On Jackie Lung, I put that the plaintiff had a good objection on that, or I guess that the defense had a good objection to the lay testimony. The defense handled the objection well on Exhibit 8. Let's see. On Witness 1, Ms. Handlet, Exhibit 5, y'all need to work on how you present your exhibits, just how you're going to put them out. And you need to make sure you give the witness, show it to the other side. So just work on that before your competition date. I had the plaintiff needed to object to something, but I don't know what. So I'll move on. Hearsay 2, whenever you object to 801. So this is really important. I looked back at 801 and that's what hearsay means. And I think you were trying to say that it was an opposing party statement. Is that what y'all were trying to go with?
Yeah, go ahead. Is more along the lines of it's not hearsay. Just for the fact that it's not being offered for the truth.
If it's not hearsay, if you're trying to say it's not hearsay, say, Your Honor, it's not offered for the truth of the matter asserted. Instead, I'm offering it to show X. So that is how you say it's not hearsay. So just practice that. That's how you say. You need to practice saying it exactly like that. You can't just say 801 because I don't know what you're trying to offer it for. So how can I rule on it not being hearsay? Let's see. On the cross of will I handle it, I have that you let the witness go on too much. Defense witness 2 Ace was a little bit repetitive in the beginning. I like the question about the nicknames, but I did say that the plaintiff could have objected to hearsay. They didn't. So, and you need to ask about this hearsay thing. You need to ask about what did you observe? So you were kind of trying to get around it by saying, adding a little something to it, but you need to ask from her perspective, what did you observe Nano doing that would make her think this? So does that make sense? Instead of the way you were doing it, you need to like get what her perception of is the way Nano was acting. Not necessarily was Nano losing it from your observation, but just from your observation, what was Nano doing that, what was Nano doing that would make you think this? So does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay. Let's see. On the cross of Ace on Samantha, I think you need to rethink your entire cross because I didn't understand where you were going. It seemed to be helping the other side to me. So you need to look at your questions again and think about what you're trying to prove. Direct, Dr. Northshire, great response to the objection. That was really well done. The plaintiff should have objected to I think that the plaintiff probably should have objected to asking about Jesse's handwriting, but you didn't get the objection, so that's fine. On the cross of Dr. Northshire, Kylie, you moved on when I was going to rule in your favor. So maybe wait to say, oh, I'll move on until after maybe the judge asks you more, but be careful about moving on too quickly. There were way too many compound questions, but you did a good job of signposting. And then finally on the closing, so I feel like you didn't really need to retell your entire story on your TLC thing. I think it took too much time. You needed to focus a little bit more on what the evidence showed as opposed to every single little thing, but what the evidence showed is really going to make them rule for you. I thought that the defendant's team did a nice job of throwing that theme back at the plaintiffs and saying why it actually helped them. I do think after that, maybe when you went back, you could work a little bit on your final after that, but you did a really good job on throwing back their theme. I also really loved how you used the money and said that, you know, he already got 100 million, but he wasn't, whatever it was, the amount that the will's going to give them. But my question was, did we have evidence in the trial itself about how much they were going to get? Because I don't remember hearing it today.
From the will or from the
well, from if they went. How much did the lawyer say that? How much Nano was worth? So just be careful, both sides, because I felt I saw this on both sides. Be careful in your closing. Make sure that all the points you want to make, that you want to drive home in closing, that you had evidence in the trial to support those points. Like you heard Ms. Hanlett say that Ace Aquatic Center or Ace One would get this many $1 billion. Well, that's even a lot more than you can use your same thing, but just make sure that that evidence is in the trial. And I saw that on both sides where there were just little things that I was like, wait, did we hear testimony on that today? I'm not sure we did. So do y'all have any questions for me? Students?
No questions?
No questions. Thank you.
I think we answered all of our questions. Thank you.
Okay. I think y'all are doing pretty good job for this. When is y'all's competition?
We're next Friday.
Next Friday. Okay. So some of you the defense seem to be off book, but a lot of you are still on book. So you need to really memorize both sides. Need to memorize those, especially the openings and closings before the competition, but also your witnesses. The witnesses can't be reading. They're going to have to memorize their stuff. So, and know your fact patterns. But I really wish all of you good luck on your competition. We'd like to hear how it goes.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate all your help. I'll send this to you. I'll send this out to you as soon as I get it done. Okay?
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. It's been really nice doing this. I hope we can keep it up as a tradition.
That would be nice.
Definitely.
Okay, you guys have a great evening. Thanks for your team.
Bye.
too. Thank your team for us. Thank you.
Thank you all.